Last year, a foundation gave me funding to conduct research on the question, how can secular actors partner with faith allies to advance gender equality? I spoke to many theologians, academics, faith leaders, and faith-based civil society organizations. I spoke to people in Kenya, in Malaysia, in Australia, in England, and in America. I studied the data on the link between religion and gender equality. The data confirmed what I have long known. Gender equality cannot and will not be achieved without engaging religious partners. Studies show that religion influences not just how people think about gender, but the outcomes and realities that women and girls face. There is statistical evidence that religiosity impacts several measures of gendered well-being outcomes, even after controlling for per capita GDP and level of development. Religion influences decision makers at the micro level like employers and at the macro level like legislators. A 2015 study of 50 countries found that the impact of religiosity on gender equality is almost the same and in some instances greater than the impact of the share of women in parliament or the share of women in the labor force. As I shared these findings in a strategy meeting with the foundation funding this work, someone raised the question, well, then what makes you optimistic that religion can be a catalyzer for gender equality? I told her it's the stories of the people and the organizations I had interviewed. It's women like Hawa Ibrahim, a women's rights lawyer who has successfully defended over 40 women, some sentenced to death in Sharia law cases. Her weapon, the very same tool used to condemn these women, Sharia law. It's women like Zainab Anwar. Her organization Musawa advocates for the reform of Muslim family laws. Musawa's resources are used to train students, activists, and policymakers, and to review countries at the United Nations. It's faith-based organizations like Uniting World. With funding support from the Australian government, this organization developed a gender equality theology program. The program challenges men and women to examine their beliefs and behaviors about gender norms. It has led to several churches adopting gender equality doctrines, condemning gender-based violence, and supporting women's faith leadership across the Pacific region. It's groups like the Circle of Concerned African Women Theologians. At the height of the HIV/AIDS crisis across the African continent, this Pan-African ecumenical group offered outstanding leadership at the grassroots level, training religious leaders and others on the link between gender injustice and the spread of HIV/AIDS. Currently, this group is addressing the intersection of religion, climate change, and the environment. It's institutions like the US-based Hadassah Brandeis Institute that is broadening contemporary understandings of Jewish women's lives, history, roles, and experiences. What I didn't say that day is that it's also women like my mother. See, my mother is a religious leader in Nigeria, and every month and week, her church supports hundreds of widows, orphans, prisoners, and students. She is often with the sick and bereaved. It is a tasking job, more so because she is a woman leader. But whenever she is tired or needs clarity on anything, she gets on her knees and begins to pray. Her faith is her fuel. This morning, when I woke up, the first thing I did was read my Bible. And a verse that stood out to me was from Proverbs. It said, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. Like my mother, my faith is my fuel." Earlier this year, while I was conducting interviews, I spoke with Dr. Layli Maparian, a thought leader in the Baha'i faith space and the executive director of the Wellesley Centers for Women. Something she said has stayed with me. She said one of the things that religious people bring is a belief in a higher power that can propel them to do almost anything. It's a resource, a different resource that can drive social change. This resource just hasn't been studied. There are many women and people of faith on the front lines of the fight for gender equality. I know this from my life and my work. And these people and organizations are doing outstanding work, often with little resources and not enough visibility. My challenge to you today, to you in government, you in think tanks, you in civil society, in foundations, in academia, in the private sector, to anyone working on solutions to advance gender equality. Find these people and organizations, find them, listen to them, partner with them. I truly believe that religion is the greatest untapped power source for gender equality. Thank you.